Before the world was divided by tongues and nations, there was one voice, pure, unbroken, and ancient as the breath of creation itself. Men spoke, and the earth understood them. The wind carried their words, the rivers obeyed their songs, and every living thing bowed to the harmony of one speech, the language of the beginning. The Tower of Babel was more than a documented story. It was a warning. What if the same power they tried to unlock is rising again? In our time, stay with us as we uncover the pure secrets they tried to hide. Subscribe and step into the truth that history forgot. It was a time when humanity still remembered the Great Flood, when the bones of drowned cities lay beneath the new soil of the world. From the Ark survivors came nations, each carrying fragments of memory, of paradise, of judgment, and of the mysterious power that once walked among men. Among them rose a man unlike any other, Nimrod, the great-grandson of Noah, strong, fearless, and ambitious beyond measure. They said he was a mighty hunter, but his prey was not beasts, it was dominion itself. His eyes burned with visions of the old world before the flood, when giants ruled and men communed with the divine. Nimrod longed to restore that greatness, to rise beyond the limits heaven had set. On the wide plains of Shinar, where the Euphrates curved like a serpent through the earth, he gathered the scattered people of the world. No more wandering, he declared. No more submission to the unseen. Let us build our own destiny. A city that never falls, a tower that touches the heavens. And the people rejoiced, for in his voice they heard unity, purpose, and the echo of something ancient. Men, women, and children came from every direction, bringing stone and fire, strength and skill. The air filled with the rhythm of hammers and the chanting of one language, the sacred tongue that all men still shared. Brick by brick, the Tower of Babel began to rise, a colossal monument of red stone glowing beneath the sun. It reached higher than the clouds, piercing the sky like a challenge to heaven itself. But beneath the roar of labor and triumph, there were whispers, faint and fearful. The elders spoke of boundaries that must never be crossed, of divine laws written not in stone but in spirit. Yet Nimrod silenced them. "Did not our fathers survive the flood?" he said. "What God can drown us twice?" MMK. Night after night, fires burned at the tower's base, altars not to the Most High, but to the power of man. Priests in dark robes murmured words older than the flood, calling upon the light of knowledge. Secrets said to have been buried by heaven itself. And though none dared speak it aloud, there were some who believed that the tower was not only meant to reach the skies, but to open them. As dawn broke over Shinar, the tower's shadow stretched for miles, falling over rivers and fields like the arm of a sleeping giant. Birds would no longer fly near it. The air around it shimmered faintly, as though the boundary between worlds had begun to thin. And somewhere, unseen beyond the clouds, heaven watched in silence. The rebellion of man had begun again, not with swords or fire, but with stone and speech. For the first time since Eden, man had dared to build his own gate to eternity. Long before Nimrod's tower reached for the sky, the roots of his ambition had already been planted, deep within his bloodline. For the world that rose after the flood was not born innocent. It carried echoes of the old world, a world where men had walked beside beings of great power and terrible knowledge. Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, stepped out of the ark carrying both memory and mystery. Each bore a fragment of the ancient world, and through them, humanity would inherit three paths: the sacred, the forbidden, and the worldly. Shem, the eldest, guarded the way of light, the laws, the worship, the covenant. His descendants became keepers of faith, building altars, not towers. Japheth, the wanderer, sought wisdom in the stars and the seas, his children spreading far across unknown lands, curious and bold. But Ham, father of Canaan, of Cush, and of Mizraim, carried a darker inheritance. He was restless, rebellious, drawn to the secrets that once corrupted the earth before the flood. From Ham's line came Cush, and from Cush came Nimrod. He inherited the strength of giants, the pride of kings, and the hunger for knowledge that heaven had forbidden. It was said that in the early days of his reign, Nimrod found writings preserved from before the flood, tablets of stone etched with symbols not of human origin. Some called them the teachings of the Watchers, knowledge of metals, stars, enchantments, and the hidden structure of the world. Others called them lies, remnants of the corruption that had brought divine wrath upon the first civilization. But Nimrod believed they were keys to rebuild what was lost, to awaken what was sleeping. He built cities that no man had seen before, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, until finally, he laid the foundation of Babel, the city that would become his throne. There, beneath its rising walls, his priests whispered to him of an ancient force, the same power that the first men used to command creation. They said it was the pure tongue, the original speech by which God himself had formed the heavens. If they could learn that language again, they would not only speak to heaven, they could command it. So Nimrod began to gather not just men, but minds. From every tribe and region, he brought the wise, the builders, the seers, the alchemists. And beneath the open sky of Shinar, they worked, chanting, measuring, aligning the tower's foundation with the stars. Every brick carried a mark, a sigil, a frequency, an attempt to call back the voice that spoke light into being. But the more the people built, the more something unseen stirred beneath the plain. Some said they heard whispers in their dreams, voices teaching words no man had ever spoken. Others began to fall ill, their eyes glowing faintly under moonlight. Still, Nimrod pressed on. "We are on the edge of godhood," he told his council. "One more step, and the heavens will bow." And so, in the heart of Shinar, the bloodline of knowledge burned brighter and darker than ever before. They believed they were rising toward heaven, but they were awakening something far beneath it. At first, the tower was only stone and fire, but soon it became something else, something alive. As its height climbed toward the clouds, the people of Babel began to change. Their unity was no longer just of speech, but of spirit. One thought moved through them all, a single will, a single purpose, to reach beyond the sky, to touch the realm that only God had walked. By day, smoke rose from their furnaces. By night, their fires burned like stars fallen to earth. From miles away, travelers could see the red glow of the Tower of Babel piercing the horizon, a monument that defied heaven itself. But Nimrod's scholars and priests whispered among themselves that the tower's purpose was greater than any man dared speak aloud. It was not a ladder to heaven. It was a gate. They had uncovered a terrifying truth. The power of creation was not bound by distance or stone. It was hidden in the vibration of words. Every sound, every symbol, every utterance carried resonance. To speak in the original tongue, the language of the beginning, was to reshape reality. So they built not only upward, but inward. Beneath the tower, vast chambers were carved into the earth, filled with inscriptions and geometric patterns that pulsed faintly under torchlight. Priests in dark robes circled these halls, chanting ancient syllables said to summon the light of heaven. What they called light, others would have called fire. And as their rituals grew stronger, strange signs began to appear. Birds fell dead from the sky above the tower. The rivers near Shinar began to darken. The ground itself hummed beneath the builders' feet. Still, Nimrod smiled. "It is working," he said. "Heaven trembles." But the elders who still remembered the flood whispered in terror. They saw the tower not as a symbol of unity, but of corruption, a mirror of the first rebellion, when the sons of God sought to rule over man. And now man himself sought to rule over God. Each level of the tower was built with sacred precision. 7 levels like the 7 heavens. On the highest, Nimrod's chamber was constructed, a temple of fire and gold, aligned perfectly with the path of the sun. He would stand there each morning, arms spread wide, declaring himself not just king of men, but the bridge between heaven and earth. On one fateful night, under a sky red with storm, his priests gathered for a final rite. They chanted the forbidden words, a sequence said to open the veil between realms. And as their voices rose, the air itself began to twist. Lightning circled the top of the tower. The wind roared with 1,000 tongues, and the stars flickered as though struggling to stay alight. The tower had become what they desired, a conduit, a bridge, but they had no control over what waited on the other side. Deep in the heart of Shinar, something ancient stirred, neither divine nor human, but awakened by the echo of their words. And the heavens, watching from above, began to move. The gate was opening. The night the heavens descended over Babel was unlike any before it. The sky burned, not with lightning, but with brilliance. Clouds twisted like living things, and the air trembled as if creation itself was holding its breath. From the plains below, men fell to their knees in awe and terror. The tower that had touched the stars now shone like a pillar of fire, its peak vanishing into the storm. And at its summit, Nimrod stood defiant, his cloak whipping in the wind, his eyes reflecting the fury above. "Do you see?" he cried. "Even heaven cannot ignore us now." But heaven had not come in admiration. It had come in judgment and in mercy. Then came the voice. Not thunder, not words, something deeper, a vibration that shook the bones, silenced the earth, and pierced the soul of every living man. Those who heard it could not describe it, only that it carried both love and sorrow, power and warning. The builders dropped their tools. The priests froze mid-chant, and in an instant, the unity that had bound mankind unraveled like smoke in the wind. The divine voice did not destroy the tower. It divided it. Every word, every thought, every syllable that once made them one was broken. A man shouted to his brother, but his brother no longer understood him. A woman called to her child, but her words turned strange in her mouth. Confusion spread like fire through the crowd. Cries rose from every direction, hundreds of voices, each speaking a new tongue. The tower trembled as chaos erupted. Bricks fell, fires broke loose, and the chants of unity turned into screams of terror. What once had been one people became many, scattered, divided, unable to rebuild what they had begun. And from above, the brilliance began to fade. The heavens closed their gate. But before the light withdrew, the voice spoke once more, softly, like a wind over the plains. "This is mercy, for if man had finished what he began, he would have destroyed not heaven, but himself." The storm passed. The tower stood silent, unfinished. A scar upon the earth, a monument to pride and warning to generations unborn. Nimrod, once the great unifier, watched his empire dissolve overnight. His priests vanished into the deserts. His scholars fled to the mountains, carrying their fragments of knowledge in secret. He realized too late that heaven had not only scattered their tongues, it had scattered their power. And yet, in the quiet that followed, a whisper remained. Some said it was the wind through the ruins. Others claimed it was something deeper, the lingering hum of the language that once united the world. For though heaven divided the tongues of men, it did not erase the memory of the first voice. It only hid it, waiting for the time when mankind would dare to find it again. When the winds of judgment swept through Shinar, the people scattered to the corners of the earth, but the memory of the tower did not die. Broken in speech, divided by distance, humanity carried with them fragments of a story they could never forget. The Tower of Babel became both a wound and a seed, a secret buried deep within the blood of mankind. Across the deserts and mountains, survivors carried strange symbols carved on clay, patterns of circles and stars, lines of sound and number. They no longer understood their meaning, yet something in their spirits still stirred when they saw them. The pure language, the divine resonance, was lost, but its echo remained, humming faintly within every tongue that followed. In the centuries that came, these echoes found new forms. In Egypt, priests built pyramids that aligned with the heavens, whispering that the stones could speak to the gods. In Babylon, magicians studied the stars and revived the name Babel, calling their new city by the old one's name, as if to reclaim what heaven had taken. In Greece, philosophers sought the logos, the word that shaped reality. And in every age that followed, a few men and women, scholars, mystics, rulers, claimed to hear faint whispers of that lost tongue. They formed secret circles and brotherhoods, passing down fragments of the ancient knowledge. Some sought to use it for wisdom and healing, others for domination and immortality. But all of them believed one thing, that the power of Babel had never been destroyed, only scattered, waiting to be gathered again. Through wars, empires, and revolutions, that pursuit continued. Hidden in architecture, language, symbols, and sacred geometry. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the temples of Egypt, the cathedrals of Europe, even the towers of modern cities, all carried shadows of the same idea: to rise, to reach, to return. For millennia, mankind rebuilt what they did not understand. Every great civilization built its own tower, not always of stone, but of knowledge, science, and power. Every age thought itself wiser than the last. And yet, every age repeated the same pattern: unity through pride, collapse through confusion. But something else was happening beneath history's surface: a silent convergence. Through trade, conquest, and invention, humanity began to reconnect. Languages mixed, knowledge spread, the world shrank, until one day, it seemed that mankind once again spoke with one voice, not of speech but of information. One network, one system, one shared language of code and data. And for the first time since Babel, the earth began to hum again with a single frequency. The same dream that began in Shinar had returned, only this time, not in brick and mortar, but in circuits and signals. The question is, have we learned from the past, or are we building the tower again?